2017 sees a whole new set of technical regulations designed to make Formula One cars travel around this Albert Park circuit here in Melbourne 4 seconds a lap faster than they used to. The man overseeing this on behalf of the governing body is Charlie Whiting, FIA race director. Charlie, first of all, why do the cars need to go 4 seconds a lap faster? Where did the brief come from?
It came from the Formula One strategy group in the first place. They wanted cars that were more challenging for the drivers. In fact, the drivers asked for this when we met them towards the end of 2014. There was a call for something that was going to challenge them more. We want them to look good, we want them to be faster and more sort of physically demanding on the drivers. That was the brief, and I believe we've delivered on that.
I've been in Formula One nearly 30 years, not as long as you have, but throughout that period I'm struggling to remember a time when a rule change was brought in to make the cars go quicker. Normally what you've had to do is to slow them down primarily for safety reasons. So has there been a change of heart here, or have you just made the circuits a lot safer to be able to deal with much faster cars?
Yeah, I think the circuits have become quite a lot, much different to how they were 30 years ago. You're absolutely right. We have always traditionally tried to slow the cars down for safety reasons, but the circuits have the capacity for it. The cars are still, well, in Barcelona, not quite as quick as they were going, I think, some 8 or 9 years ago. So it's not a massive change, it's just a big change from last year, really. And I think the main thing is that cars will, I believe, be harder to drive and more challenging for the drivers, which I think is what we wanted.
And will the drivers be able to push them a bit harder? Because we have heard voices over the last couple of years, frustrated voices from the drivers, to say that they don't feel they can push these cars flat out for the whole 300-kilometre race.
Well,
do you get the sense that they'll be able to do that now?
Early indications are yes, they will. So let's hope that turns out like that in races, because that's what the drivers want. They don't want to be looking after tyres all the time. So hopefully that will work, but it's a bit difficult to tell from testing.
So for those who haven't been poring through the motorsport magazines through the winter, let's just look at a few details of these rule changes. First of all, the most obvious thing is the shape of the cars. They look, as you say, more aggressive. The front and rear wings have been changed, and I understand there's a lot of change on the floor as well. And is that the idea there, to generate a lot more downforce to make the cars faster?
Yes, of course. There's lots of things, too many to mention here really, but the visible, one of the briefs was to make the cars look more appealing, and I think that's been achieved. They need to look good, but they had to generate quite a lot more downforce to be faster and to overcome the drag from the bigger wheels and tyres. So there are many things. The visible ones are obviously the front and rear wings, lots of bodywork around the leading edges of the side pods, the diffusers bigger, wider, you name it, it's been done.
When I went to look at the cars in testing in Barcelona, I was shocked at, first of all, how wide they are, back to the days of the Nigel Mansell sort of cars, the 2 metre wide cars. We'll come on to talk about overtaking and what that means in a minute, but those front wings are enormous. I suspect we'll lose quite a lot of them in close combat. You might be needing to trigger that safety car quite a bit in 2017.
Not as wide as they have been. If you go back to 2009, they were a little bit wider. The cars were even wider still, if you remember, when I first started in F1. I think they were 215 centimetres wide, so they're not as wide as that, so we've only gone back to where we were, I think, about 15 years ago.
The other obvious thing, Charlie, is the tyres, isn't it? I mean, they're wider, I think 8 centimetres on the rears each tyre and 6 centimetres on the front one. Temperature is obviously an issue there, because they used to overheat in the previous generation of tyres, but it's basically, I guess, just about grip, right?
It was part of the package. It was part of the lap time improvement package. We wanted about 1.5 seconds from the tyres, and I think we've got that. It's a little difficult to tell what the split is at the moment, but the drivers appear to be quite happy with the tyres, so that's a good sign, because they were overheating quite a lot. And I think one of the critical things last year was that if a driver overheated the tyres, lost a bit of grip, he couldn't get it back. And I think early indications are that has been one of the goals set, and we have, or Pirelli I should say, have achieved that goal.
Now, anyone who follows Formula One knows that the rules get changed reasonably frequently. We're always dealing with various different kinds of rule changes. But is this going to be it now for a little while? Is it going to be it, for example, until 2020, when all the teams are tied in contractually to Formula One? Obviously, there'll be discussions about going beyond that. Or do you suspect there may be more changes between now and 2020?
I don't think there's any prospect of that happening. There's certainly nothing on the table, so to speak. So it would be nice to keep them stable for a while.
A bit of stability would be a good thing. Now, obviously, we've got new management in Formula One on the commercial side, and your old mate Ross Brawn is come in
Yes.
to look after the racing side. Obviously, you've been across the table from him on many discussions on technical points when he was at Ferrari, Mercedes, etc. But how's the working relationship so far in terms of looking at what the ideal product for Formula One should be and what the rules for the future beyond 2020 should be?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't got to that stage yet, but early signs are that we're going to have a very good relationship. Of course, I know Ross very well, and I think, as I say, it's a little early to say exactly how it's going to work out, but we get the distinct impression that they want to work very closely with us in order to make Formula One better. It's as simple as that, really.
Just a couple of other details on the differences people will notice this year. From a racing point of view, something obviously you'll be in charge of very much is the starts when it's a wet day.
Yeah.
We won't have any of these long parades behind the safety cars and then finally releasing them. You're actually going to release them with a standing start.
Yes.
What's
Yeah.
brought that about?
Well, I think we always are aware that if you start a race with a safety car, the spectators and the viewers miss the standing start. In fact, I even missed the standing start, so it's one of the most exciting bits of the race. So we thought, why not just, instead of just letting them loose as the safety car comes in, bring them back and have a start. So the laps behind the safety car are termed formation laps, so the car just does multiple formation laps, comes in, the cars come back to the grid, and we just have a standing start. So everyone gets what they want. We get a safer start, and the fans get what they want, what they came to see.
And a controversial one with many fans, of course, as well, is the stewarding, the refereeing, if you want, of the sport. Last year there was a lot of talk around Max Verstappen and the moving under braking, and the drivers had their views. Where are we on that? Has anything developed since then? Are you going to give them more leeway to get on with it themselves, or are you still going to be refereeing them hard?
We've been asked to take a more sort of liberal approach to things. The so-called Verstappen rule about moving under braking is no longer breaking the rules as such. So moving under braking was deemed, in Austin last year, all the drivers were asking for a clear direction on that. So we gave them an interpretation of the rules which said moving under braking will be investigated by the stewards. But now what we're saying is simply that moving under braking will be one of those things that the stewards may want to look at, but they'll look at each case on its own merits. So in other words, unless a manoeuvre is potentially dangerous to another driver, then they won't investigate. So we'll just use that one rule which says something like, I can't remember the exact wording, but any erratic driving or moves that could be potentially dangerous to another driver will be investigated by the steward. So we've got a simple rule. If it's dangerous, they'll investigate. If it's not, they won't. But based purely on the incident itself.
So you've overseen many different rule changes throughout your long career in Formula One. How big a change is this in terms of the historical level of change? How much difference is there, and how excited are you about the 2017 Formula One
Well,
cars?
first of all, it is a very big change. I think probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest. We go back to '83 when the ground effect cars were dispensed with in favour of a flat bottom. That was a big change, but this is bigger, I think. But to answer your second question, I'm very excited. It was great to see the cars out. They look good. I think the drivers enjoy driving them, so I'm extremely excited to see how they race.
Charlie Whiting, thank you very much for your time. Have a great weekend here in Melbourne.
Thanks.